Hey Daniel, you know our favorite game?
TI4?
Yeah, that epic space opera game where all of our friends can play as alien civilizations.
Yeah, I know that one.
But it's like the whole day.
What? No, we played in like 4 hours.
No, 6 hours. But what if I told you, this is TI4 in 1 hour?
1 hour?
Yeah, TI4, 1 hour!
TI4, 1 hour?
This is brought to you by our good friends at Game Theory Tables that want to bring the love of board gaming to as many people as possible, just like us. For the holidays, they're dropping limited quantity, huge discount door busters exclusively for people in their email list about a week ago. There's also Black Friday drops for all visitors with some of the biggest discounts of the year. If you've been on the fence about upgrading your board gaming nights, this could be it. Remember to use the code SHELFSIDE for a free layout on a table. Now back to the video. We here at ShelfSide love our big epic games, like Sid Meier's Civilization, Twilight Imperium, and Twilight Imperium with an expansion. And these games are called 4Xs, where you go out and explore, and then expand your civilization, and then exploit the lands you've conquered, and then exterminate your enemies. But epicness has a price. These big games take a while to play. I would say at least 4 to 5 hours for these guys here. So then this is where Last Light comes in. Rewind the tape. So a couple months ago at WSBG, Roy from the Dice Tower and I are chatting, and he says, "Hey, you like TI4, right? Well, try out my game. It's also Space 4X, but 1 hour." Wait, 1 hour? How is that possible? Then Roy said, "Yeah, Ashton, I'm not kidding. Let's play it right now. I'll teach you." Man, Roy, you're just so likable, man. So he taught me and I played it, and now Grey Fox Games has sent me a review copy. I was also able to play it 4 more times, all at 4 player, bringing the final play count to 5. But we'll have some more thoughts on 2 player and 3 player. FYI, Grey Fox Games and Roy Cannaday are not sponsoring this video. Roy's my buddy, but he hasn't seen any of this footage. All my scores are totally my own. We never compromise our scores here at ShelfSide. Remember, the sponsor for today's video is these guys here. Back to Last Light. So the idea is that billions and billions of years in the future, this white dwarf is the only light in the universe. So everyone is trying to get as much light as possible, gobble it all up. So you'll be sending ships to the center of the universe to get it, capturing planets next to it, all while the board rotates. Wait, what? The board is rotating? This is a new thing for a 4X. So let's just how to play. The goal of Last Light is to have 20 or more light. Once that happens, the game ends. See if you have the most. The main way to do this is to have control of planets in the 2 rings. Then when you play a refresh card, you get points equal to the planets you hold. Also, you have 1 of 4 secret objectives you picked before the game, and can get light from that too if you currently own all those places. We'll explain this special middle dwarf star in 1 bit. Last Light is simultaneous play, so every turn everyone will take 1 of 6 cards, then pick 1 to play face down, then flip them all over at once. Then it resolves in order from lowest to highest. Once you play a card, it stays there until you get it back later through other means. Cards can be gaining these tubular resources, trade to get tubes, mine to get tubes from planets you hold, including from your base, colony ship. Cards can also be spending to gain other things, draw tech, and pay for as much tech as you want, or constructing ships by paying for them with tubes, and then you can build and extract your base on a planet your ship is at to say it's now yours. The most pivotal card is commanding, to move every single one of your ships, usually 1 space, and attacking with them. Note that everyone will move in clockwise order, so if you played command first, you move, then someone else can move immediately after you. Then you look at the firepower of ships, then rolling once. Hits just do 1 damage, and you can hit and get a reroll, and rolling this mod symbol can trigger tech you've researched. Note that you only roll dice once and can only attack if you've played command. So it's very possible to roll dice, miss all of them, and then you just chill there like your friends. Yeah, I didn't mean to attack you. Don't attack me back. The last card is Refresh, where you take back all the cards you played before. Refresh abilities you may have exhausted, and get points for planets you control. But this doesn't go back into your hand. It only goes back once everyone has played Refresh. Then you end the round. You pass a first player token, and you remember all these ships in the middle of the board? These players get a light for each ship they have in there. Holy moly. More holy moly comes from rotating the boards. Middle board goes like a so, and outside board goes like a so. So yeah, that's the gist of the game. Look through your 6 cards, pick 1 to play, everyone reveals at once, and then eventually you play Refresh to get them all back in your hand. That's just the bare bones though. More info in the pros. Before moving on, we do want to note that we have the deluxe version of this Gamefound game. So it basically has better everything, starting with this UV board. There you go. UV board. Nice, there you go. Yeah, there you can see it. We got a buttload of minis with 3 different types for each player. You have the Apache attack helicopter looking things for red with their hulking bigger ships. Then purple is looking a lot more sleek and maybe out of Marvel. We also got these hairball looking asteroids that give some more 3D-ness to the game, as if it didn't already have enough with the levitating planets. Everything fits inside a multi-layered insert with plenty of plastic bags. You have so many. Resources are also in these cool looking canisters. You got clear, purple, and gold member to touch. And the light tokens are nicely engraved with this glyph looking mark. The action cards are also really distinguishable. It's so easy to see what your opponents have played. Oh, and these dice are really cool too. Always nice to see some symbols instead of numbers when rolling dice, and they're engraved. Lastly, for components, the rotation is easy to do with the linking up areas. This really helps you do the rotations quick and get back to picking a card, get back in the game. And that gets us perfectly to accessibility. For 4X, Last Light is so easy to teach. And believe me, I've taught TI3 and TI4 with the expansion to multiple people. That's because most of the game here, most of Last Light is in these 6 cards. Just 6 cards. That's it, really. After you explain what winning is like, you just run through each of the cards, and conveniently explaining from 1 to 6 is a great order. That's because 1 through 6 will leave command explanation last, which is attacking, which will wrap up your how to play on an example of how combat works, then you just hop into the game. I mean, also each action is really simple to explain. You can just say you have to do everything on them from left to right. So now it's time for gameplay pros, and let's start with the card play, where it's a really neat puzzle on thinking when to play refresh, because it is the main way to get the rest of the cards back in your hand, so you can start playing your favorite action cards again. Like, you can move a lot if you command and then play refresh, get it back, then command again. You just moved twice in 3 turns. However, playing refresh early, like as in your second card, also exposes yourself, since you can't play it again until everyone else plays refresh. So if you want to refresh your tapped abilities, you're gonna have to wait for a long time. Plus, if you hold on to your refresh and be the last one to play it, you will dictate when the central boards move. And it's great being able to time exactly when the round ends if you have ships in the middle. So this goes exactly into how much interaction there is in keeping track of what other people have played and seeing what their intentions are, so you can either move and attack them before they attack you next round, or research something to buff your ships before they attack you. Remember, playing command last in turn order is best, because then you can move away from people trying to hit you. So if you're last, ideally you play command at exactly the same time others do for maximum efficiency. And your hand isn't just playing action cards and then getting refreshed to get the cards back into your hand, because your hand can get manipulated by all these tech and exploration things here. You got these dynamic hands. It's really around turn 3 or 4, where you'll see you're playing a distinct hand from everyone else. People have different cards left in their hand, with different ones played, with cards going back into their hand sometimes, which all makes the refresh action more interesting to time. And this is all done fast, because you're simultaneously choosing a card to play and then flipping them over. Many of them don't actually interfere with each other's activities, so you can do them at the same time. So I can mine while you construct ships, so this keeps turns moving really fast. While Last Light is fast, it has so many 4X elements crammed into its short playtime. Obviously, it doesn't have everything that TI4 has, but let's get into the cramming it has. It has fleet management, where you build ships and then move them pretty freely, and then fight each other with their different types. And they're all upgradable. Yep, there's all sorts of tech you can get to upgrade your ships. Maybe you have them move twice as fast, kind of like getting a tier 2 cruiser in TI4. There's also tech to upgrade your civilization with once per round abilities. You can build a sort of engine here. I had a buddy build a tech stealing engine that revolved around him making fighters twice as strong. Then he could research tech for free if you rolled the mod symbol in combat. So he just moved a bunch of places to attack as many people as possible during each command. Or how about just doubling down on dreadnoughts with a death blossom, so they get stronger for each ship around them. So that you can just plop down in the middle, getting that free VP, and if someone else comes to fight you, there's a lot of ships around that area to draw power from. Oh, there's also a butt ton of asymmetric factions to flesh out your strategy a little bit more. There's normally 15, but now we have like 20 more from these Gamefound exclusives. These ones can upgrade your ships from anywhere, and this one's my favorite, giving you extra VP from sitting in the middle of the map, so you want to just rush a ton of small ships to the middle. Like, look how many factions there are combined. This, with all the different types of tech and ways to set up the exploration, means there's some good replayability here, which is also important because this game is short. Quite cool for replayability is how many different ways there are to get VP. Granted, you'll want to hold the inner planets and achieve your objectives. Those are the main way to get points, but you can look to rush tech to have the research action give you more points every time you play research. Or you can work really hard to mine places that give you light. You can even go full aggro and just attack other ships like crazy, because every time you kill an enemy ship, it goes inside your graveyard. Once your graveyard hits 4 ships, you give those ships back to people and you get 1 light. So basically, killing 1 enemy ship is 1/4 of a point. As we wrap up pros, I want to talk about the progression of last light. It just really quickly ramps up from early to mid to end game as you get more extractors on planets and your colony ship, which means your mining action will get really strong to get you a ton of resources whenever you play it. Then you can spend all these resources on the research action. Then you can spend a ton of the resources to get you all the tech in your hand. Now your ships are getting stronger, maybe they move faster, maybe they shoot harder, and then you have more things in front of you as civilization techs to tap. Building ships in your own way is some immersion asymmetry, which asks you to play around each other a little bit differently. And since command activates every ship, you can see your decision space late game become big as you can split fleets in a bunch of different directions and attack with them. Oh yeah, endgame rounds can certainly be tense with everyone attacking each other, especially since there's quite a bit at stake if you let someone keep a ton of ships in the center of the map. So let the dogpiling begin to get the points there. This all culminates in a very fast moving space game where lots of drama is encouraged as players find ways to attack each other on a moving map, while 20 points happens in likely under 5 to 6 rounds. Like look, a really good refresh turn can get 4 points from just 4 planets. Then with your secret objective accomplished, that could be 8 points. So then you're almost halfway to ending the game. This forces players to really be on the lookout of what others are doing, but more on this in the cons. Component cons time. And my goodness, where do I even start for a deluxe game? Planets stick to bases through a plastic rod going through cardboard into plastic, which is a fine idea, except for that it's not very finely cut out for having something erected in the air. So the plastic can pretty frequently fall off while setting up and taking down. You don't move around the planets while playing too much, so they don't fall down too much, but it has happened. It's annoying. Oh yeah, there's also just way too much dead space in the planet insert. I'm assuming they just ship everything in the 8-player planet insert just cuz. Okay, now onto the components I'm more concerned about. We got the quality of the cards. R6 action cards are fraying pretty heavily after only 3 plays with this copy. Like, this poor trade action is really dying on me. These need sleeves so fast. And look at these exploration aids. These sneaky devils, they're flat now, but they weren't before. Because they're so thin, the moment the temperature has fluctuation, they start sticking up like crazy. I mean, the game isn't that complicated, but couldn't all these symbols be defined on one side, then put what you do on a turn on the other? Like what happens when a round ends, or how a combat works. After all, this exploration aid is entirely useless once all the exploration tokens are gone, so you could have at least had a use for this card after that. Then you know how when you're exploring planets, you're flipping secret cardboard over? Well, it turns out that the Gamefound version of some secret tokens, namely the wild resource givers, are bigger than the normal ones. Oh my goodness. Like if you see this on the board, duh, I know exactly what that is now. Like you could get around this by reaching into the bag when you explore a planet, but I'm super shocked how this even happened. Like what? And not being able to tell what the exact rarity of the token is when turned over is quite annoying during setup and takedown, especially if you want to play a back-to-back game. You just have to flip them over and over again. This gets us into the game just being kind of hard to see sometimes. You see how the planets are divided by color here? Well, they're only divided by color, no other distinguishing marks. So if you're colorblind, you're screwed. Stuff on the actual planets is just hard to see in general. Can you see the extractors? Oh, now you can. Fact is that having a 3D planet is cool, but comes at the cost of blocking what's under it. So you frequently have to crane over the table to see what the mining output is. Speaking of output, these resource pieces are really cool, but making them only be distinguished by the inside color doesn't always make them too easy to tell apart at some angles. This really hit me when I saw the purple one that came split open, and I was like, oh, that's so much easier to see. If they're gonna block off so much of the color, why not make them different shapes or sizes? Exploration icons also could have used color too. Like, why are they trying to be so edgy by making most of them white and black? White and black is to gain a light. Sure, that makes sense. But then why make getting an action card and getting a text symbol look so similar? This isn't gonna trip you up after your first or second game, but doesn't need to be this similar. Where is the color? Actually, speaking of exploration icons, this symbol means you get a free small ship when you get it. But then you see this symbol in the center of the map, also the same exact thing. Wait, so does that mean that only small ships give you points by being in the middle? No, it does not. So why is this the same exact symbol? My goodness gracious. Rules issues time. So this game is not that complicated, but this rulebook is so bare bones. There are some edge cases and symbols straight up not even answered. What is this symbol on the aliens? Don't know from the rulebook, but Roy told me it just means they're exclusives. Here's some mechanics it's missing, like how do instant abilities exactly resolve? Is there an order to it? Doesn't say in the rulebook, but it says in the player aid. Why is this not in the rulebook? Then attacking has no examples or diagrams shown, which is so concerning for a space game with fighting. Like, it doesn't even go into detail how 3-player combat works, so you just have to fill in the gaps that you roll dice in turn order. Or how often can you use the mod abilities in combat? It is truly infinite. Thanks for the quick response, Roy, but you could easily see how players could get confused on how often it happens because tech is strong. Rulebook, show examples, please. This whole rule confusion bleeds into the components with getting to take an action back into your hand. You got these tech cards here that say you can take any action except for refresh. Okay, so don't take refresh. But then does that mean that these tech cards allow you to take refresh back into your hand? Oh no, because in the rulebook, it says that you can never take refresh back for any reason. So why not just keep the wording consistent? Now for gameplay cons. So the first is a problem with tech. Remember how we were praising it so much in the pros? Well, the problem is that this tech, which everyone draws randomly while playing the research card, is just unbalanced. There's tech to spend 2 mediums for a strong resource every round. That's pretty good. But then constructing a galactic monument after 1 gold member for a literal paint is way better. Or how about development to double the strength of your extractor building? It's so easy to spam this because command has you move all your ships to planets, and building extractors is free. Or how about this one, leadership? It's a dirt cheap tech that kills itself to get back an action card. Well, you get back command into your hand for more movement and attacking, while others can't attack you back. That is too good for its cost. One I really want to dial in on is movement tech. So there's 2 ship movement boosts, supersonic and pioneering. Supersonic just +1 movement for that ship permanently. Pioneering lets you tap it to move 1 of any type, so it's more flexible but needs to refresh. Getting able to move 1 more space is so key in this game, since your ships only spawn from your colony ship. And there's not that many rounds to move because Last Light is fast. There's a huge snowballing effect you can get from starting out the game with movement and then being able to easily move ships to gobble up exploration tokens and speed towards the middle of the map, which is free VP if no one else has movement, and you just sit there uncontested. Like, hey, if a guy is standing there on the street and says, I'm gonna give you $100 for standing next to me. Well, if you can move twice as fast as me, you're gonna be rich, faster than me. If we count the supersonic and pioneering cards, it's 10 total in a deck of 83 cards. Since you'll see 4 cards upon your first research action and see 3 more cards for every subsequent one, it's totally feasible that everyone has access to some type of movement buff by mid-game. So if everyone has the move, totally fine. But if it doesn't happen for a certain player at all during a game, it can feel so bad. The truth is that some techs are always good to have, and others are very situational. And even with drawing 3 cards from researching, sometimes you don't get the right ones and feel behind, while that guy next to you is constantly utilizing theirs. It definitely tells you something about balance, that the moment you draw a ship move, buy it ASAP, it's too good. This leads us to 3 fixes for tech. 1, balance their costs more, especially since there's no prerequisites to building the strong ones like other games do with colors or pyramids. 2, create a central area that all players are buying from. Maybe they're even bidding for them, driving up the price of good techs, with the added side benefit of being able to anticipate what others will tech up on. The 3rd fix for tech is totally revamping the movement, that is, taking out all the movement tech. Just get it out of the game. It's too good for some players to have them and others not to. So what we will do is make it guaranteed. We understand that it's just good to have more movement for more decisions, like moving 2 spaces to blockade your opponent's planets. Just allow players to spend a certain amount of resources and buff a ship's movement. Okay, so we're talking a lot about movement and balance, and a reason why this is hitting even harder is because the exploration tokens are heavily unbalanced. There's 9 different types. They can be like getting flat resources, drawing a tech to research later, to research a tech without paying its cost, it could be any tech, to immediately building an extractor on the planet you just explored. Yeah, you literally just saved yourself an entire construct action by getting the right flip because now you have a base there. How about early game getting the token to take back an action? Oh, hi command. Then you play command again to explore more and get free stuff. Oh, hi another token to get back command. And remember, going towards the middle is usually better in this game. What? Wait, what's the problem though? Isn't this a very natural thing for a 4X? For there to be exploring and some imbalance because the game is just gonna level out as players self-balance among themselves. Well, first of all, Last Light is not that long. It's only 20 points, so players can't really self-balance that well. It's hard to swing back the swinginess from exploration. And then the exploration tokens are all next to each other on this board. And then some of them are so strong where you get to move around more or build an extractor for literal points. That type of early game insanity does not exist in any other 4X games I know of. So yeah, I would highly suggest taking out at least this extractor exploration one and probably this one that lets you take back an action to your hand. Anyways, when we take the imbalanced tech and exploration, Last Light suffers from a large runaway leader problem and then the hopeless loser problem as you basically get eliminated if you have a poor opening. We've seen games where the leader won so hard by just having 7 ships in the middle and no one else could do anything. Also, 4Xs don't really have the runaway leader issue as much because there's extermination. And here we have a pretty big bone to pick with Last Light, calling itself a true 4X. Okay, sure, you're technically exterminating players off the map, but wiping them doesn't exterminate said player because they can still get points through research action. Going off of Explormate.co's definition of exterminate, extermination of other races and civilizations is always included among whatever victory conditions there are in a 4X. Like TI4, where if someone is really ahead, you're effectively eliminating them by sitting on their base and preventing them from getting points. And I'm sure this is the case to prevent the game from dragging on longer. Like if you have the winner suddenly getting 0 points around and the stragglers are slowly trying to crawl their way up, it's gonna add more time to the game. But that's just what happens in true 4Xs, which this game calls itself. To be fair, Last Light has more extermination than Scythe, which really did not feel like extermination, even though it claimed itself to be a 4X. As a general idea, if you call yourself a true thing, like a true 4X, you better do it all the way, and here, put the proper weight to extermination. Don't mislead people. Like if Last Light called itself a space epic with 4X-ish elements, that would be fine. Or a 3X with space combat, or 4X-ish, that would all be fine. More on this game's identity in scoring. Player count discussion time. So yeah, you cannot truly exterminate players, but having more players is just better for this game as you have more players to help wipe the leaders from the middle or blockade their extractors. While we haven't tried 2 or 3 player, we would say the way to go is definitely 4P here. After all, it's hard to play King of the Hill when there's only one other person fighting for it, huh? Let's just wrap up the cons with the factions. Yes, you got 35 of them with the Gamefound exclusives, and then at the start of the game, you draw 2 random, and then pick one to use. But some of them just feel lazily done or just underpowered. This one to roll an additional die is not that good because getting to move or a boost to your economy means more for points. Or there's this one to get you a large ship instead of a small ship that's intimidating early game, but really not too impactful. This also means you don't have a faction ability after setup, and the same goes for this one that replaces a normal planet with a rare planet. That's not the most interesting. Contrast these with the more interesting and stronger ones, like spending a medium resource to build an extractor after exploring. Wow, that's replacing half a construct action every time you explore for amazing tempo. Or this Nyrix, for whenever you do damage to an opponent, you take an unresearched tech from their hand and literally build it for free. Wait, what the heck? Okay, this is a little too good. Remember, Last Light is a fast game, so the initial faction grab is super key. We would say that at the beginning of the game, you should draw 3 randomly, then pick one. Maybe you could draw 4, pick one. More options, usually better. Remember, the factions aren't insanely imbalanced, but just don't quite feel there yet. And the whole faction design feels like a bit of a buzzkill because there's lots of effort on the backstory and art for each, but then a lot of them feel like afterthoughts in design, and maybe that's the Gamefound exclusives just being shot out super fast. I mean, my personal preference is to say just go way harder on the asymmetry, like give them different starting techs, different size fleets at the beginning, and maybe even different colony home ships. Yes, I am saying make it more like TI4. Scoring! Now it's time for recommended score on Last Light, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. Last Light is claiming to be a true 4X that plays in an hour, seriously. So off of that, this is gonna get a recommender score of 5 out of 10. It is average. Now this was going to be a 6 out of 10, but holy moly, 135 USD for these components? Not a great deal. And 95 bucks for cardboard pieces does not sound great. Nowadays in board gaming, for 150 bucks MSRP, you can get better minis, better card quality, and even higher quality player boards in TI4. But we're not here for TI4, we're here for kind of that feeling bottled up for speed. And it's commendable how Last Light has so much of that here without feeling overboard or bloated. It's super clear that Roy and the design team have played their fair share of TI, with incentives to fight over the middle, teching up your ships where the big one can bombard, just like a Dreadnought and TI. And then there's even this faction that specializes in tech, which smells so much like the Jolnar in TI. Or there's a literal planetary defense you can unlock, like PDS. I can even feel the Eclipse 2nd edition isms with how many mods you can put on your shipboards. You got a box here that you can just whip out and pretty much teach to anyone. The simultaneous turns work really well with the clear different actions you can pick, and something is always happening. Getting resources, spending them, or attacking. Something's happening, and it's easy to comprehend. A nice little POV example would be focusing on buying all 4 techs you have in your hand because you mined last round. And then now, since you have the speed upgrade, you can send the fighters to the middle of the map to compete for those. And then your huge ships are planning to go bombard that other guy who's holding the planets you need to fulfill your secret objective. Last Light is undoubtedly going to be pretty cool for those who just want to try playing a space game casually. But will that first game of it have a balanced tech distribution? Will it? Will it not? Will you not notice and just attribute that to first game woes? Once we broke it down, tech is one of the most intriguing and frustrating parts about this game. Once you realize that if someone gets too ahead early, it's so hard to stop them, it can be just so upsetting given how many interlocking ingredients there are in this game. So then you have to start heavily house ruling explorations and tech, or even making the game longer to give not luckier than thou a chance. While making this review, I felt so much deja vu of our Civ A New Dawn review, which we had to bomb blast for not handling randomness well for an allegedly 4X game. Although Last Light isn't nearly as punishing or solved as A New Dawn, and it has way more interaction if you get the +1 movement, and you're always sussing out how your opponents are going to play their action cards. Now we have to talk about time because we keep saying this game is fast, but we didn't clarify any numbers. 4-player games range for us between 1 to 2.5 hours. Whoa, why the huge range here? Well, it's because the 1-hour games had someone just shooting ahead to close out the game in an hour, whereas when the game took longer, it was more of a balanced back and forth of fighting each other. So this dynamic back and forth is probably what you want, but it's doubling the playtime on the box. I just couldn't strictly put this in the cons though, because 2 hours for so many 4X elements is very impressive. And honestly, having the time to use all your techs over 2 hours lets the progression shine more. So you got a game that will never drag too long, but it's actually better when it drags past when it's supposed to end. Alas, we live in an age where people want fast. Fast setup, fast teach, and fast play. Why spend 5 hours when it can spend 1, right? And there's nothing inherently wrong with fast, but it just has to make sense for the type of game. So why are 4Xs long? Because they're dramatic, with tons of twists and turns and let negotiation come to light. The nail in the coffin on how casual and fast this game wants to be is making refresh happen before command. That is, letting players score points for things they hold before other players get a chance to attack them. While this is not an inherently bad thing at all, it really goes to show how if someone's ahead, they just play refresh, get their points, win the game before someone else can even attack them that turn. It's pretty Euro-brainy, right? Sometimes the only way to really stop people is by doing a next level prediction of their tech builds. Last Light is currently a Luxac-prone racing Euro, which can have the right tech and exploration flips to be a soft 4X. While there's a lot of fun space opera isms you can do, like experimenting with all sorts of techs to attack others, sending a death ball to the middle, or blowing up those who don't trade with you for a giggle, they don't move the needle in winning against teched up players who grind out that light. In other words, you can get outlucked and out-Euro'd, which is likely not why you bought this game. While it's so short that losing from someone else drawing the nuts isn't too upsetting, it can't hide behind that short playtime from us. And seeing how there's an empty space in the insert for extra planets, and how the Gamefound is clearly showing an 8-player game, I suspect the focus on Last Light was to just get you in and out the door with as many people as possible. Have the bombastic drama, tons of abilities, and most importantly, not have it drag. Granted, for longevity in a game, the quality of abilities is important though. especially if you bought the core box to play with 4 players. Roy Cannaday has made a fantastic first game. There's no doubt about that. For a game to have so much going for it, then have some critical issues is frustrating, but I have zero doubt that Roy's next game will be so good. Whether it be second edition of Last Light that is a bit longer and more balanced, or another game, we'd love to take a look if that is what could come out for a first-time designer. Look, I was bouncing around this a lot while I was making the script. I was so close to giving this a 5 out of 10 recommender before the pricing issues, so it would be overall a 4 out of 10 recommender. But this game is going to speak so strongly to a casual crowd that doesn't care too much about the balance issues. And for people like us, yes, it is easily heavily house rulable. Luckily, I've been seeing Last Light at a heavy discount in a lot of places, so getting it on sale will be a great deal. So just get it on sale, then institute some house rules and you should be pretty good. And now my personal score can shed some light on the situation. Ha ha ha, light. My personal score for Last Light, okay, is gonna be a 7 out of 10. I have a good time with it. I've been really hunting for a game like this, a 4X that takes a lot of the isms of my favorite game, TI4, and condenses it in a not too crazy playtime. There's still some asymmetry, you still got the fun tech, and you're still chucking dice while players shoot towards the middle for more conflict. Last Light has all these bits and pieces of all my TI4isms in about an hour to 2 hours, which is definitely enough to get it to an 8 or 9 out of 10. While the card play is way simple compared to the intricate movement of TI4 command tokens or civilization flag movement, it's not really a big deal seeing how this game is so short. Okay, so now the bad stuff. I don't like how this game looks. I don't know why it felt like such a high schooler science project to me with a gumball planets. In fact, everything just looks extremely generic, from the aliens that look like cosmic encounter dudes, which is an art style that doesn't jive with me. And then literally just putting colors underneath the planets just looks bleh. Abilities have no art, and all look visually so similar that they just kind of blend together in my head. Then as for reasons listing in the cons, yeah, I think there's a lot of mechanical issues with the game, but I'm here for the ride even when the game is unbalanced because I think the systems are satisfying enough and I'm on my quest to keep house ruling it. What keeps coming back is the fun drama and possibility of combining all the techs with all the factions. What are some new ways I can fight my friends by rolling dice? By the way, I think the dice system of rolling dice once and that's it is very satisfying. You're in, you're out, there's not too much to fuss about, just keep playing the game. I don't like it when these epic games slow down too much from just too much dice rolling. Also, you have the exploding dice for really cool comeback potential. The fact that you can do King of the Hill, a mechanic I don't see much of, is awesome, with proper spaceships that do have personality through upgrades. Though I do wish there was more personality to the planets, cards, lore, etc. in the game, make it more like TI4, ha ha ha. Okay, now let's go deeper into the poopy stuff. I think moving in this game is in a weird space. You simultaneously get too much of it since you get to move everything one space, but it also doesn't feel like you can move enough before the game ends. Remember, the only way to normally move stuff is via that one command card. So I'm always wishing I have some way to recycle back into my hand or else I feel sluggish. If I get the recycles, fun. If I don't, bleh. Also, I really wish you could spawn ships outside of your colony ship. Let's talk about this rotating board. I was actually expecting it to play way more of a factor in the experience. Sure, it took some time to visualize the rotations, but after my second play, it just stopped being too interesting to me, and it's just another thing I had to play around. It's not too special. Also, since the game is so short and this always moves in the same consistent way, I usually see it rotate 4 times and it's just, okay, it's just another rotation. And there's not quite as much interaction as I would have liked. I feel like I'm not quite interacting with the person diagonally across from me. Sure, I can give resources via trading, but that's not much. Like I have played games where I attack the person diagonally from me once or twice, but that's more the exception than the rule. Remember, if the game was longer, I could do more with interaction. Also, give me a reason to attack people's bases. Last Light is definitely gonna be joining my collection as a regular game I like to bring out until I throw it away for second edition. Second edition, that's right. Now you have to make second edition, Roy. Make second edition so we can play it together. It'll be so much fun. It'll be so much fun, Roy. Anyways, thanks to Roy Cannaday and Grey Fox Games for sending this copy to me. Again, them sending it to me did not affect scoring. And also, we got a big thank you to our patrons right here. So this was a very interesting review to make. I played it a lot of times, so if you want to go ahead and pledge to our Patreon, please, that would help us out, make these reviews. And let me know what you think about this game. Maybe there's some other short 4Xs out there that I haven't heard of, because I know there's quite a bit of those on the market, but I also heard that they don't quite compete with this rotating board and the the charm of the simultaneous play, I'm not really sure. I mean, this is all just hearsay. So let me know in the comments. And also, we got our Mad Lads of Cardboard right here. Let me know what you think. Yeah, comment, subscribe, like the video, all that. See you later. Bye.